I need you to know that it started as pillow talk, intimate conversation, the kind of thing couples whisper to each other in the dark when inhibitions are low and honesty feels safe. I wasn't making demands. I wasn't issuing ultimatums. I was sharing a fantasy, opening up about a desire I'd been carrying privately for months. Isn't that what healthy relationships are supposed to look like? Vulnerability, communication, creating space for desires to be voiced without judgment. But apparently, some desires are better left unspoken. Apparently, some fantasies should stay locked away in your head where they can't detonate your entire life. Because when I whispered to my husband that I wanted to bring a woman into our marriage, not just our bed, our marriage, he didn't get excited or curious or even uncomfortable. He just rolled over, looked at me with eyes that had gone completely cold, and whispered back, "Find her a room for two." At first I thought he was playing along, being kinky, engaging with the fantasy in his own way. Then he added, "Because you won't need the room for three." That's when I understood. He wasn't joining my fantasy. He was ending our marriage. Before we get into it, don't forget to like and subscribe, and hit hype to boost this episode. Drop a comment below with your city or country. I'm always curious where viewers are joining from. And suddenly, I wasn't the adventurous wife suggesting we expand our horizons. I was the woman who'd just talked herself into a divorce with one whispered confession. But let me back up. Let me tell you how we got there. Because this wasn't spontaneous. This wasn't random. This was the culmination of months of thinking, researching, convincing myself that what I wanted was reasonable and achievable, and something my marriage could accommodate. I just never considered that my husband might disagree. David and I had been married for 9 years. We were solid, or at least I thought we were. We had the house, the careers, the comfortable routine. We were the couple that other couples looked at and thought, relationship goals. But somewhere around year 7, things had started to feel incomplete. Not bad, not broken, just not quite enough. We had great sex, regular sex. The kind of sex that experts say is healthy for long-term relationships. But it had become predictable. We knew each other's bodies so well that there were no surprises anymore, no discovery, no sense of exploring something new. I started having fantasies. At first, just about other people in general. Celebrities, strangers, hypothetical scenarios that added spice to my solo time. But gradually, those fantasies became more specific. Women. I'd always known I was attracted to women, even before I met David. I'd had a few experiences in college, nothing serious, just exploration. When I fell in love with David, I didn't think much about it. I loved him, wanted to be with him, and my attraction to women became this background thing I acknowledged, but didn't act on. But lately, it had been getting louder. I'd see women and feel that pull, that curiosity, that hunger for something I couldn't have in my heterosexual marriage. I'd watch shows with queer couples and feel this ache of longing for that specific kind of intimacy. And I started wondering, why did my marriage to a man have to mean giving up that part of myself entirely? I fell down the internet rabbit hole, polyamory forums, couples who'd opened their marriages, unicorn hunters looking for thirds, triads who'd built entire lives together, sharing homes and beds and futures. It started with one article about a successful throuple. I'd been scrolling Instagram late one night while David slept beside me, and a sponsored post appeared, How We Made Our Triad Work, One Couple's Journey to Polyamory. I clicked. I read the whole thing. Then I read 10 more articles. Then I found myself on Reddit at 2 a.m., deep in our polyamory, reading posts about people navigating multiple relationships with what seemed like grace and maturity. The more I read, the more it seemed possible. Not just possible, ideal. Why should I have to choose between my love for David and my attraction to women? Why couldn't I have both? Why couldn't we build something bigger, more expansive, more fulfilling than traditional monogamy? I started following poly accounts on Instagram, watching YouTube videos of triads doing mundane things, cooking together, going to the park with their kids, explaining their relationship structure to curious strangers. I joined Facebook groups where people discuss the logistics of loving multiple people, sharing calendars, and establishing boundaries and working through jealousy. Every night after David fell asleep, I'd stay up reading, learning, convincing myself. I discovered the terminology, compersion, feeling happy when your partner is happy with someone else, NRE, new relationship energy, metamors, your partner's other partners, kitchen table poly, where everyone hangs out together like a family. I learned about the different structures, hierarchical poly, where there's a primary couple, non-hierarchical, where everyone is equal, relationship anarchy, where you reject all traditional structures. It all sounded so evolved, so mature, so much healthier than the possessive, restrictive model of monogamy I'd grown up believing was the only option. I read article after article about couples who'd brought in a third person, usually a woman, and found that it strengthened their relationship instead of threatening it. They talked about how it brought excitement back to their marriages, how it allowed them to explore new dimensions of intimacy, how it made them appreciate their primary partner even more. One woman wrote, "Bringing Sarah into our marriage was the best decision we ever made. She's not a threat to my relationship with my husband, she's an enhancement. We're all in love with each other in different ways, and it's beautiful." I must have read that testimonial 50 times. I wanted that. I wanted beautiful and evolved and multiple dimensions of love. Another couple described how their girlfriend had been with them for 5 years, how she was part of the family, how their kids called her by name, and she came to holidays, and she was as committed to the relationship as they were. They posted photos of the 3 of them cuddling on the couch, cooking elaborate meals together, traveling to exotic locations as a unit. It looked idyllic, perfect, like they'd cracked some code the rest of us were too scared or too conditioned to pursue. I started imagining it with David. I pictured us at dinner parties introducing our girlfriend. I imagined lazy Sunday mornings with 3 people instead of 2. I thought about how we could divide household chores with an extra person, how we could have deeper conversations with different perspectives, how our lives could be richer and fuller and more interesting. And slowly, insidiously, I convinced myself that this wasn't just something I wanted, it was something I needed, that staying monogamous was suppressing a fundamental part of who I was, that David and I were stagnating, and this was the solution. It sounded perfect. It sounded like the solution to everything I'd been feeling. I spent months researching, learning the terminology, understanding the dynamics. I learned about hierarchical polyamory, where there's a primary couple and secondaries, about triads, where everyone is equally involved with everyone else, about unicorns, the bisexual women willing to date couples, and why they're called unicorns, because they're rare and magical and everyone wants one. I joined online groups where people discussed the logistics, how to find a third, how to establish boundaries, how to make sure the new person doesn't feel like an accessory, how to navigate jealousy and scheduling, and all the complicated emotions that come with expanding a relationship. And gradually, I convinced myself that this was what I needed, what we needed, that bringing a woman into our marriage would revitalize everything, would give me the connection to women I'd been craving while keeping my foundation with David intact. I just needed to convince David. I picked my moment carefully. A Saturday night, after we'd had wine with dinner, after we'd had sex, good sex, connected sex, the kind that made me feel close to him. We were lying in bed, that post-intimacy glow where everything feels possible and honest. I was nervous, my heart was racing, but I'd rehearsed this conversation in my head 100 times. I knew how I wanted to frame it, what words to use, how to make it sound exciting instead of threatening. Can I tell you something? I said, my voice soft in the darkness. Always, he said, his hand finding mine under the covers. I've been thinking about our relationship, about us, about where we are and where we're going. Okay. I felt him tense slightly, the way people do when they sense a serious conversation coming. I love you, I started, because that felt important. I love you so much, and I love our life together, but I've been feeling like there's something missing, something I need that I can't get from you. He turned to look at me, his expression confused. What do you mean? I'm attracted to women, I said, the words coming out in a rush. I always have been, and lately, I've been feeling like that's a part of me that's being suppressed, like I'm not fully myself because I can't explore that side of my sexuality. Okay, he said carefully. I knew you were bi when we got married. That hasn't changed, right? No, it hasn't changed, but being with you means I'm not exploring that part of myself, and I've been wondering. I took a breath. I've been wondering if there's a way to honor that part of me while still being with you. I could feel him processing, trying to figure out where I was going with this. What are you asking? He said quietly. I want to bring a woman into our relationship, I said, the words finally out there. Not just for sex, but for real. A third partner, someone we both love, who loves both of us. A triad. The silence that followed felt like it lasted forever. You want a girlfriend, he said flatly. We want a girlfriend, I corrected. Both of us, together. It would be our relationship, just with 3 people instead of 2. No. The word was simple, final, devastating. David, just hear me out. No, he repeated, sitting up now, the warmth between us evaporating. I don't want a girlfriend. I don't want a third person. I want my wife, just my wife, the marriage I signed up for. But what if this could make us stronger? I pressed, sitting up too, needing him to understand. I'd prepared for resistance, but not for this immediate shutdown. What if having someone else could bring us closer together? Studies show that couples in ethical, non-monogamous relationships often report higher satisfaction. Stop, he said, holding up his hand. Stop with the studies and the ethical language and the sales pitch. This isn't a business proposal. This is our marriage. I know it's our marriage. That's why I want us to make this decision together. There's no decision to make, he said, his voice hard. You already decided what you want. You're just here to convince me to go along with it. That's not true. I'm asking for us to explore this together. Explore what? He turned on the bedside lamp, flooding the room with harsh light. Explore you sleeping with other people. Explore me watching my wife fall in love with someone else. Explore destroying everything we've built. It doesn't have to destroy anything. That's my whole point. It could enhance. I don't care about studies, he said firmly. I care about what I want, and I don't want this. You're not even willing to consider it, to think about it. He looked at me for a long moment, and I saw something shift in his expression, hurt transforming into something harder. How long? He asked. How long what? How long have you been thinking about this, planning this? How long have you been lying next to me every night fantasizing about bringing someone else into our bed? I wasn't lying. How long? He repeated. A few months, I admitted quietly. A few months. He laughed, but it sounded broken. You've spent months thinking about this, researching it, convincing yourself it's what you need, and you never thought to mention it to me, to include me in the process. I was waiting for the right time. There's no right time to tell your spouse they're not enough. His voice rose. There's no good way to say, hey, honey, I've been fantasizing about other women, and I want to act on it with your blessing. That's not what this is. Then what is it? He got out of bed, started pacing. Explain it to me. Make it make sense. That's not what I said. It's exactly what you said, he countered. You said there's something missing that you can't get from me. You said you need to explore a part of yourself that I can't provide. How is that not telling me I'm insufficient? Because it's not about you being insufficient. It's about me having needs that don't diminish what we have. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. You want to bring another person into our bed, into our lives, into our marriage, and you think that doesn't diminish what we have? It could expand what we have. I don't want to expand it, he said, his voice rising. I want the marriage I have, the one where it's just you and me, the one I chose, the one I thought you chose too. I did choose it, I do choose it, but why can't that choice evolve? Why can't we grow and change? Because I don't want to change. He was yelling now, something he almost never did. I don't want a girlfriend. I don't want to share my wife. I don't want to watch you fall in love with someone else and pretend I'm supposed to be happy about it. You could love her too. I don't want to love anyone else. He got out of bed, started pacing. I fell in love with you. I married you. I committed to you. And that was supposed to be enough. We were supposed to be enough for each other. But we've been together 9 years, I tried to explain. Things get stale. People change. It's natural to want someone else, he finished. To want to fuck someone else and have your husband not just be okay with it, but participate in it. That's not natural. That's not normal. That's you being bored, and instead of working on our relationship, you want to add someone new. That's not fair. What's not fair is that I thought we were happy, he said, his voice breaking. I thought we were good. And apparently, you've been fantasizing about bringing other people into our marriage for months without telling me. Researching it, planning it, making decisions about our future without including me. I was waiting for the right time to bring it up. There is no right time to tell your spouse they're not enough. He stopped pacing and looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Disappointment mixed with resignation. Do you even understand what you just did? What you just asked me? I asked for honesty, I said weakly. I asked for growth. You asked for permission to cheat, he said, and when I said no, you tried to make me feel like I'm the one being unreasonable. He grabbed his pillow and a blanket. Where are you going? Guest room, he said. I need space. I need to think about whether I want to stay married to someone who sees me as insufficient. David. But he was already gone, the door closing quietly behind him. He didn't come back to our bed that night, or the next night, or the night after that. We barely spoke for 3 days. When we did talk, it was surface-level logistics about dinner or bills or who was picking up groceries. He wouldn't look at me, wouldn't engage with anything deeper. On the 4th day, I tried to apologize. I shouldn't have brought it up like that, I said. I should have prepared you better. Should have let you know I was thinking about this. Prepared me better, he repeated. For what? For my wife telling me she wants to fuck other people. Stop saying it like that. How should I say it? He crossed his arms. Use your preferred language. Make it sound better. I want to explore ethical non-monogamy with you as a partner in that exploration, I said, using the language I'd learned from my research. I want us to grow together by opening our relationship to include someone who enhances what we have. Enhances, he said, like we're a product that needs improvement. That's not... You want a girlfriend, he said simply. Just say it. Stop hiding behind therapy words and progressive language. You want permission to date and fuck other people while staying married to me. When he put it that way, it sounded bad, selfish, wrong, but that wasn't how I saw it. That wasn't what I wanted. I want us to build something together, I tried again. I want us to find someone we both connect with, someone who becomes part of our family. I don't want a family with a stranger, he interrupted. I want a family with you, just you. Why is that so hard for you to accept? Because it feels limiting. The words burst out before I could stop them. Because it feels like I'm being asked to suppress part of who I am. Because I'm attracted to women and being married to you means I never get to explore that. Then maybe you shouldn't have married me, he said quietly. The words hung in the air between us. That's not what I meant, isn't it? He looked at me with those same cold eyes from that first night. If being married to me feels limiting, if you feel like you're suppressing who you are, then maybe we made a mistake. Maybe you should be with someone who's open to the kind of relationship you want. I want to be with you. But not just me, he said. That's the problem. You want me and someone else, and I only want you. Those things don't coexist. We started sleeping in separate rooms permanently. David moved into the guest room with more of his things each day. Clothes, books, his laptop. It started to look less like temporary space and more like his new bedroom. I tried multiple times to restart the conversation, to find a compromise, to make him understand that this didn't have to be a deal breaker. What if we just tried opening up in small ways? I suggested one night over dinner we were forcing ourselves to share. Like, what if I just went on dates with women? Nothing physical, just exploring connections. So you date other people while I sit at home waiting for you? He shook his head. No. What if you dated too? What if we both... I don't want to date anyone else, he said firmly. Why is that so hard for you to grasp? I'm not interested in other people. I'm interested in my wife, my one wife. But that's so limiting. To you, he interrupted. It's limiting to you. To me, it's exactly what I want. And the fact that you can't understand that you keep pushing and trying to find compromises to something I've clearly said I don't want, that's the real problem. So we're just supposed to ignore my needs? What about my needs? He shot back. What about my need for a faithful partner? My need to feel like I'm enough? My need to not have to share my wife with other people? Do those needs not count? Of course they count, but yours count more, he finished. Because yours are about growth and exploration and evolution, and mine are just about being traditional and boring and insufficient. I never said you were boring. You didn't have to. He stood up, taking his plate to the sink. You said I wasn't enough. That's worse than boring. That's fundamentally inadequate. David, I need to know something, he said, turning to face me. Is there already someone? Is this about a specific person you're interested in? No, God, no. There's no one. This is just about the concept. The concept, he repeated. You're willing to blow up our marriage over a concept, over something that might happen with someone you haven't even met yet. When he put it like that, it did sound insane. I'm trying to be honest about what I need, and I'm trying to tell you that what you need is incompatible with our marriage, he said. So either your needs change or the marriage ends. Those are the options. That's an ultimatum. Yeah, he agreed. It is. You gave me one first when you said you wanted to bring someone else into our marriage. Now I'm giving you one back. Me or your fantasy. Choose. I didn't choose, not consciously, but my inability to let it go was a choice in itself. I kept bringing it up, kept trying to convince him, kept sending him articles about successful poly relationships, kept trying to find couples who could testify to how well it worked, kept pushing and pushing, because I couldn't accept that the answer was no. 2 months after that first conversation, David moved into the guest room full-time. Not because I kicked him out, but because he wanted space from me, from the constant pressure, from the way I kept trying to reshape our marriage into something he didn't want. I can't be around you right now, he admitted one night when I asked why he was avoiding me. Every conversation feels like you're trying to convince me to be someone I'm not, like you're trying to sell me on a lifestyle I don't want. And I'm tired. I'm so tired of defending monogamy like it's some kind of character flaw. I'm not saying it's a flaw. You're saying it's limiting, he said. You're saying it's insufficient. You're saying it's not enough for you. How is that different? I didn't have an answer. 3 months after that first conversation, we tried couples therapy. I thought maybe a neutral third party could help us find middle ground, could help David see that what I was asking for was reasonable. I'd found a therapist who specialized in alternative relationship structures. Her profile said she was poly-friendly and had experience with couples navigating non-monogamy. I thought that meant she'd be on my side, that she'd help David understand. Our first session, she asked us each to explain what we wanted from therapy. I want my wife to stop trying to fundamentally change our marriage, David said. I want her to accept that I'm monogamous and that's not going to change. I want David to be open to growth, I countered, to consider that there might be ways to structure our relationship that honor both of our needs. Tell me about those needs, the therapist said, looking at me. I explained about my bisexuality, about feeling like part of me was suppressed, about wanting to explore relationships with women while maintaining my marriage with David. I talked about all the research I'd done, all the successful triads I'd learned about, how this was becoming increasingly common and accepted. The therapist listened to both of us. Then she said something I didn't expect. It sounds like you have incompatible visions for your marriage. Neither of you is wrong, but you want fundamentally different things. The question is whether either of you is willing to compromise, and if not, whether this marriage can continue. I'm willing to compromise, I said quickly. I'm willing to move slowly, to establish boundaries, to make sure David feels secure. Compromise on something I've clearly said I don't want is not compromise, David interrupted, his voice tired. It's coercion. You keep looking for ways to inch toward what you want, and you're framing my resistance as me being inflexible. The therapist turned to him. Are you willing to consider any form of ethical non-monogamy? Even in small ways, like your wife going on dates with women without physical intimacy. No, he said firmly. I want a monogamous marriage. That's what I signed up for. That's what I want. I don't want my wife dating anyone else, sleeping with anyone else, or falling in love with anyone else. Is that really so unreasonable? It's not unreasonable, the therapist said, but it may be incompatible with what your wife needs. What I need, David said, his voice cracking slightly, is to not spend every day wondering if I'm enough. I need to not watch my wife scroll through dating apps looking for women. I need to not have to smile and pretend I'm okay with her exploring her sexuality with other people. Those are my needs, and apparently they don't matter. They do matter, I said quickly, but even I could hear how hollow it sounded. The therapist looked at me. And are you able to let go of this desire for a poly relationship? Can you commit to monogamy and find fulfillment within those parameters? I wanted to say yes. I wanted to choose David, choose our marriage, choose the life we'd built. But the words stuck in my throat, because I'd spent months convincing myself that I needed this, that I couldn't be fully myself without it, that staying monogamous meant suppressing a fundamental part of my identity. I don't know, I admitted. The therapist let the silence sit. I could feel David next to me, could sense him crumbling without even looking at him. I think, the therapist said carefully, that you both need to seriously consider whether this marriage can continue if you want such different things. Sometimes love isn't enough when the fundamental values don't align. We had 3 more sessions after that. Each one felt like a funeral. David became more withdrawn. I became more defensive. The therapist tried to help us find common ground, but there wasn't any. He wanted monogamy. I wanted permission to explore. Those things didn't coexist. In our last session, the therapist asked me directly, if staying in this marriage means accepting monogamy, can you do that? Can you let go of the polyamory fantasy? I hesitated. Again. David stood up. I have my answer, he said quietly, and walked out. David's face crumpled. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. My inability to choose him was answer enough. 4 months after that first whispered conversation, David asked for a divorce. We were in the kitchen. I was making coffee. He walked in, looked at me with those tired eyes and said, I can't do this anymore. Do what? This. Us. Whatever we are now. He leaned against the counter. You want something I can't give you, and I can't spend the rest of my life feeling like I'm not enough, like I'm holding you back from who you're supposed to be. You're not holding me back. I am, he said, and you resent me for it. Maybe you don't realize it yet, but you will. You'll wake up one day and hate me for being the reason you couldn't explore your sexuality the way you wanted to, and I don't want to be here when that happens. I could never hate you. You already do, he said quietly. A little bit. I can see it when you look at me, like I'm the obstacle between you and happiness. That's not true. Then give it up, he said simply. Tell me right now that you're done with this fantasy, that you're choosing me and our marriage and monogamy. Tell me you can be happy with just us. I opened my mouth. The words should have been easy. I love you, I choose you, we're enough. But they wouldn't come, because I'd spent 4 months convincing myself I needed more. And now, faced with the choice, I couldn't undo that conviction. I started, then stopped. Yeah, he said. That's what I thought. He pulled an envelope from his pocket. Divorce papers. I'm not trying to punish you, he said. I'm not trying to force your hand. I'm just being honest about what I need. And I need a partner who wants the same kind of relationship I want. We don't want the same thing anymore. Maybe we never did. I took the envelope with shaking hands. David, please, can we take more time? Try harder. Try harder at what? He asked. At me convincing you that I'm enough? At you convincing me to want something I don't want? We've been trying for 4 months. It's not working. But I love you. I know you do, he said, and he sounded sad. Genuinely sad. But love isn't enough when you want different lives. You want freedom to explore. I want commitment to stay exactly as we are. Those things don't coexist. He picked up his keys. Where are you going? I've been staying at a hotel the last few nights, he admitted. Needed more space than the guest room could provide. I'll come by this week to get more of my stuff. We can figure out the logistics of dividing everything. This is really it? My voice broke. We're really ending. He turned at the door, and I saw tears in his eyes for the first time through all of this. You ended it 4 months ago when you whispered that I wasn't enough, he said. I've just been waiting for you to realize it. That's not what I said. It is what you said, he replied. You just used different words. Find her a room for 2. Because when you find your girlfriend, you won't need the one with me. And then he was gone. That was 6 months ago. The divorce was finalized last month. It was amicable, as divorces go. We split everything fairly. No fighting, no drama. Just 2 people who wanted different things, acknowledging they couldn't find common ground. I haven't found my girlfriend yet. I've been on some dates with women, tried some poly events, met people in the community, but nothing has clicked. Nothing has felt worth what I gave up. The first woman I dated after the divorce was named Claire. She was poly-experienced, had 2 other partners already, seemed like she had it all figured out. We went on 3 dates before I realized I was comparing everything about her to David. The way she laughed wasn't as genuine. The way she held my hand felt foreign. The conversations never went as deep. You're not over your ex, she said after I cancelled our 4th date. You should probably work on that before trying to date. The second woman, Jenna, was also recently divorced from a man and exploring her queerness. We bonded over that shared experience. But every time we talked about our exes, I found myself defending David, explaining that he wasn't close-minded or cruel. He just wanted something I couldn't give him. So why aren't you fighting for him? She asked. If he's so great. I didn't have an answer. I went to a few poly meetups, sat in circles with people discussing calendaring apps and dealing with jealousy and how to tell your family about your unconventional relationship. Everyone seemed so certain, so confident in their choices. And I sat there feeling like an imposter, like someone who'd destroyed her marriage, chasing something she didn't actually want. One woman at a meetup talked about how she and her husband had been poly for 10 years, how they had a beautiful network of partners and metamors, and it enriched their lives beyond measure. The key, she said, is that both partners have to genuinely want it, not just one person pressuring the other. Both people need to enthusiastically consent to opening up. I felt sick. because that was exactly what I'd done, pressured David into considering something he fundamentally opposed, framed his monogamy as a limitation instead of a valid choice. And that's the thing that haunts me most. I don't even know if I actually wanted polyamory, or if I just wanted permission to explore without consequences. If I wanted a girlfriend, or if I just wanted to not feel trapped. I've had plenty of opportunities now. To date women, to explore my bisexuality, to build the poly life I claim to need. But I keep stopping short, keep pulling back, keep realizing that what I actually miss isn't the freedom to date others, it's David. My therapist says I was experiencing what a lot of people do in long-term relationships: restlessness, fear of missing out, desire for novelty. And instead of working through those feelings within my marriage, I latched on to polyamory as a solution. The problem wasn't that you're poly, she said during one session. The problem was that you used polyamory as an escape hatch from dealing with the actual issues in your marriage. What issues? I asked. We were happy. Were you? Or were you comfortable? She tilted her head. Because from what you've described, it sounds like you were bored. And instead of working on rekindling passion with David, you decided the answer was to add someone new. She was right. Of course she was right. I see David's social media sometimes before I remember to stop looking. He seems good, healthy, at peace with being single. He posted something recently about rediscovering himself, about learning that he's enough just as he is. And I'm here, supposedly free to pursue the poly lifestyle I claim to need so badly. But mostly, I just feel lonely and confused, and like I gave up something real for something theoretical that hasn't materialized. My friends are split. Some think David was too rigid, that he should have at least been willing to discuss it. Others think I was selfish, that I took a good marriage for granted. My best friend Sarah was firmly in the second camp. We met for coffee 2 months after the divorce was finalized, and she didn't pull punches. I love you, she started, but what the hell were you thinking? I was thinking I wanted to be honest about my needs. You were thinking about yourself, she interrupted. You spent months researching this without including David. You made a unilateral decision about your marriage and then framed it as you being evolved and him being stuck. That's not... It is, she said firmly. You had a good husband, a faithful husband, a husband who loved you and would have worked on any actual problems in your marriage. And you destroyed it because you were bored and convinced yourself the answer was sleeping with other people. It wasn't about sleeping with other people. Then what was it about? She leaned forward. Really, strip away all the poly language and the ethical non-monogamy buzzwords. What did you actually want? I sat with that question for a long moment. I wanted to feel excited again, to feel like anything could happen, to not feel like my life was completely mapped out until I die. And you thought a girlfriend would give you that? I thought it might, I admitted quietly. Did you ever consider, Sarah said gently, that you could have had those feelings with David? That you could have worked on bringing excitement back to your marriage without adding other people? We were stuck in a rut. So you don't renovate the house, you burn it down. She shook her head. That's what this was. You burned down your marriage instead of fixing it. Other friends were more sympathetic. My coworker Maya, who was polyamorous herself, understood why I'd wanted to explore. But you can't force someone into polyamory, she said when I told her what happened. That's poly rule number 1. Everyone has to enthusiastically consent. If David didn't want it, you had 2 choices: accept monogamy or leave. You tried to create a third option that didn't exist. I thought he might come around. That's not how it works, she said. You can't convince someone to want polyamory any more than you can convince someone to be gay or straight. It's either part of who they are or it isn't. And for David, it clearly wasn't. So I'm just supposed to suppress who I am? Are you actually poly? She asked pointedly. Or did you just want permission to explore your bisexuality? Because those are different things. Being poly means you're wired for multiple loving relationships. Wanting to experiment doesn't make you poly, it makes you curious. I didn't have an answer for that either. I don't know which group is right, maybe both, maybe neither. What I do know is that I whispered a fantasy into the dark and it destroyed my marriage, that I prioritized possibility over presence, that I chose the idea of something more over the reality of what I had. David was right when he said I ended things 4 months before he did. I ended them the moment I decided he wasn't enough, the moment I let my attraction to women become more important than my commitment to him, the moment I convinced myself that honesty about every desire trumped consideration for his feelings. Sometimes I replay that night in my head, the moment before I whispered. I imagine myself keeping quiet, keeping that thought to myself, accepting that some desires don't need to be voiced. Would we still be married? Would I be happy? Would the fantasy have faded, or would it have grown until I exploded anyway? I'll never know. What I do know is that when he whispered back, "Find her a room for two," he was giving me exactly what I asked for, freedom to pursue what I wanted. Freedom from a marriage that felt limiting. Freedom to explore. I just didn't realize freedom would feel so much like loss. People ask me sometimes if I regret it, if I wish I'd never brought it up, never pushed, never forced David to choose between my fantasy and our reality. The answer is complicated. I don't regret being honest about my attractions. I don't regret acknowledging a part of myself I'd been suppressing, but I regret prioritizing that honesty over my marriage. I regret not working on the real problems, the boredom, the complacency, the loss of passion, before jumping to polyamory as a solution. I regret not considering that David's boundaries were just as valid as my desires. Most of all, I regret not understanding what I had until it was gone. I had a man who loved me completely, who was faithful and present and committed, who wanted to build a life with just me, who thought I was enough, who would have worked on any problem we had except the one I presented, wanting other people. And I lost him because I convinced myself that wasn't sufficient, that I needed more, that exploring my sexuality was more important than honoring my commitment. Now I'm free to explore, free to date women, free to pursue polyamory with whoever will have me, and I'm more alone than I've ever been. The room for two is empty, and I'm starting to realize it always will be, because what I actually wanted wasn't a girlfriend. It was to feel alive in my marriage again, to feel desired and exciting and like anything was possible. I just chose the worst possible way to pursue those feelings. And now I'm paying the price. When the end. Have you ever asked for something that cost you everything? Drop your city or country below.